Bold. How to Go Big, Create Wealth and Impact the World, by Peter H. Diamandis and Steven Kotler. Introduction. Imagine for a moment it's the year 1996. A giant of a company, a true behemoth, rules the world. This company has 140,000 employees and is worth a staggering $28 billion. It has a near-total monopoly, controlling 90% of its market in the United States. The company is called Kodak, and its business is memories. The Kodak moment is a phrase woven into the fabric of our culture. They are, for all intents and purposes, invincible. Now, fast forward just 16 years to 2012. That same giant, that invincible behemoth, files for bankruptcy. It's gone. Wiped out. In that very same year, a tiny little company with just 13 employees, a company that had never made a single dollar of profit, is bought by Facebook for $1 billion. That company's name? Instagram. How does this happen? How does a 100-year-old empire with 140,000 employees crumble, while a team of 13 kids becomes a billion-dollar success story in less than 2 years? The answer to that question is not just a business lesson. It's a map to the future. It's the secret to how our world now works. And it's the core message of a brilliant book called Bold, by Peter H. Diamandis and Steven Kotler. Peter Diamandis is a fascinating man, a medical doctor, an aerospace engineer, and the founder of over a dozen high-tech companies, including the famous X Prize Foundation, which offers huge cash prizes for radical breakthroughs that benefit humanity. He and his co-author, Steven Kotler, an expert on human performance, wrote Bold as a playbook. It's a guide for anyone, young or old, in a garage or a big company, who wants to do something massive, something that leaves a dent in the universe. It's sold millions of copies and has become a kind of Bible for a new generation of entrepreneurs. Today, we're going to unpack the secrets hidden within this book. And I promise you this, by the end of our time together, you won't just understand why Kodak failed and Instagram succeeded. You'll see the world through a new lens, a lens that reveals how you, right now, have more power to change the world than kings and billionaires did just a few decades ago. You'll have a new framework for thinking, a new set of tools, and a new understanding of the incredible opportunities that are waiting for you. So, let's get started. Let's learn how to be bold. Book summary. Think of the world 66 million years ago. Huge, lumbering dinosaurs roamed the earth. They were the undisputed kings, the dominant life form for 100 million years. They were big, slow, and completely inflexible. And then, one day, an asteroid the size of a small city slammed into the planet. The world changed in an instant. The sun vanished, the climate went haywire, and the environment transformed so radically that the dinosaurs, for all their power, couldn't adapt. They went extinct. But while the dinosaurs were dying, another creature was thriving. Small, furry, nimble mammals. Our ancestors. They were resilient. They saw the chaos not as an end, but as an opportunity. And in an evolutionary eye blink, they took over the world. The authors of Bold begin with this story for a very important reason. Because right now, in our time, another asteroid is hitting the world. This asteroid is called exponential technology. And it's doing the exact same thing. It's wiping out the large, slow, lumbering dinosaurs of our time, the big, inflexible corporations, and creating a massive opening for a new breed of quick, nimble mammals. Today's entrepreneurs. This is the central idea of the book. Our minds, the authors explain, are built to think in a linear way. We evolved in a world that was local and linear. If you take 30 steps, you end up about 30 meters away. Simple, predictable. That's linear growth. 1, 2, 3, 4. But exponential growth is different. It's a doubling. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8. If you take 30 exponential steps, you don't end up across the street. You end up 1 billion meters away. You circle the Earth 26 times. Our brains literally cannot grasp this kind of change. It feels like science fiction. But it's the force that now governs our world. And this is where the story of Kodak comes in. Back in 1975, a young engineer at Kodak named Steven Kotler invented something extraordinary, the world's first digital camera. It was the size of a toaster, took 23 seconds to capture a grainy, black and white image, and stored it on a cassette tape. When he showed it to the Kodak executives, they were not impressed. They asked him, why would anyone want to look at their pictures on a TV? They saw this clunky device and compared it to their beautiful, high-quality film business. They failed to see the exponential curve it was on. They did the linear math. They thought, this is a toy. It will take decades to become a threat. But they missed the deceptive nature of exponentials. That 0.01 megapixel camera doubled in power, then doubled again and again. 0.01 became 0.02, then 0.04, then 0.08. To the executives, all these numbers looked like 0. But once that doubling broke past the number 1, it was only 20 doublings away from a million-fold improvement. This leads us to what Diamandis calls the 6 Ds of exponentials. This is the roadmap that every world-changing technology follows. It's a chain reaction, and understanding it is like having a crystal ball. The first D is digitalization. Anything that becomes digitized, represented by ones and zeros, can spread at the speed of light and hops onto the exponential growth curve. For Kodak, the moment photography went from a physical process film and paper to a digital 1 pixels, its fate was sealed. The second D is deception. This is that early period where the growth is almost invisible. The doubling of tiny numbers looks like nothing is happening. Kodak's executives were in the deceptive phase. They saw the 0.01 megapixel camera and laughed. The third D is disruption. This is when the technology suddenly breaks out and creates a new market, destroying the old one. For digital cameras, this was the moment they became good enough for the average person. By the time Kodak realized their error, it was too late. Digital photography wasn't just a new product, it was a disruptive force that put their entire film and chemical business out of business. This is where the story gets even more powerful. The chain reaction continues. The fourth D is demonetization. The money vanishes. Suddenly, film was gone. The cost to take a picture dropped to 0. You could take thousands of photos for free. This destroyed Kodak's main revenue stream. The fifth D is dematerialization. The physical object itself vanishes. First, film cameras disappeared, replaced by digital cameras. But then, something even more profound happened. The smartphone arrived, with a high-quality camera built in for free. The digital camera itself dematerialized. It became an app on your phone. Think about that for a second. Your smartphone today contains things that, just a few decades ago, would have cost nearly $1 million. A video camera, a GPS system, a video conferencing setup, a massive library of books and music, a video game console. All of it dematerialized into the device in your pocket. And that leads to the final D, democratization. This is when the technology becomes so cheap and accessible that it's available to almost everyone. Taking, editing, and sharing photos, once a costly and complicated process, became free, instant, and available to billions of people. This is the asteroid. The 6 Ds are the reason Kodak, a 140,000-person company, went bankrupt, while Instagram, with just 13 people, was able to leverage the democratized power of smartphones and the internet to build a platform for sharing memories and sell it for $1 billion. The book calls this the new Kodak moment, the moment an exponential force puts a linear company out of business. And this is happening in every industry. Taxis are being disrupted by Uber. Hotels by Airbnb. Retail by Amazon. The powerful message here is that this disruption isn't just a threat, it's the single greatest opportunity in human history. The authors make a bold claim. The world's biggest problems are now the world's biggest business opportunities. For thousands of years, only kings and emperors could solve large-scale problems. Then, it was the industrialists. But today, the authors argue, that power has been completely democratized. An individual with passion and a laptop now has access to the technology, the minds, and the capital required to take on any challenge imaginable. The best way to become a billionaire, Diamandis teaches, is to solve a billion-person problem. So, how do you do it? The book is divided into 3 parts. First, understanding the technologies. Second, developing the right mindset. And third, leveraging the power of the crowd. Let's look at the tools. We've already talked about the 6 Ds, but what are the actual technologies driving this change? The book highlights several, but let's touch on a few to give you a taste. Consider 3D printing. For all of human history, we've made things through subtractive manufacturing. You take a block of wood or stone and carve away everything you don't want. It's wasteful and limiting. 3D printing is additive manufacturing. You build an object layer by layer, from the ground up, straight from a digital file. For decades, this technology was in its deceptive phase, slow, expensive, and limited to cheap plastic prototypes. But now it's becoming disruptive. We can print in over 100 materials, from plastics and metals to rubber and even biological cells. Companies are printing jet engine parts that are stronger and lighter than ever before. Doctors are printing custom-fit prosthetic limbs and bone implants. And at the consumer level, a company called Local Motors 3D printed an entire car, live on a show floor, in a single day. The factory of the future might just be a printer in your garage. Then there's artificial intelligence. For years, AI was the stuff of science fiction, like HAL 9000 from 2001, A Space Odyssey. But today, AI is all around us. When you ask Siri for directions or Netflix recommends a movie, that's AI. The book argues we're at a pivotal moment. IBM's Watson, the computer that famously won on Jeopardy, has since been sent to medical school. It has read millions of medical journals, textbooks, and patient files. Now, it's available on the cloud, and startups are using it to help doctors diagnose diseases with an accuracy no human could ever achieve. The authors see AI as becoming the ultimate user interface, a Jarvis from Iron Man that you can talk to, ask complex questions, and use to control all the other technologies at your disposal. And what will that AI control? How about robotics? We're moving beyond simple factory robots locked in cages. We now have robots like Baxter, a humanoid robot that you can train just by moving its arms. It costs the equivalent of about $4 an hour to run and can work on an assembly line alongside humans safely. This isn't about replacing all human jobs, it's about automating the dull, dirty, and dangerous, freeing up human creativity for higher-level problems. These technologies, and others like networks and sensors, synthetic biology, and infinite computing, are all converging. They're feeding off each other, creating a tidal wave of change. But having access to these incredible tools is not enough. To wield them, you need a different kind of mindset. This is the second part of the book, the bold mindset. The authors tell the story of the Skunk Works, the secret innovation lab at Lockheed Martin. Back in 1943, during World War II, the U.S. military needed a jet fighter to compete with Germany's, and they needed it fast. A brilliant engineer named Kelly Johnson assembled a small, hand-picked team, put them in a smelly circus tent next to a plastics factory to keep prying eyes away, and gave them total freedom, cutting them off from all corporate bureaucracy. His motto was "Be quick, be quiet, and be on time." In just 143 days, a shockingly short time, they delivered America's first military jet. The Skunk Works became a legendary model for innovation. Steve Jobs even created his own version to build the first Macintosh computer, famously saying, "It's better to be a pirate than join the Navy." Why does this skunk method work so well? The book breaks it down into a few key psychological principles. First, high, hard goals. The Skunk Works wasn't just building a plane, they were trying to save the world from Nazi peril. Big, meaningful goals focus our attention and make us far more persistent. When your mission matters, you find a way. Second, autonomy and isolation. By walling his team off, Kelly Johnson gave them the freedom to take risks and try crazy ideas without fear of failure. To do something bold, you need a buffer from the naysayers and the status quo. As the book says, the day before something is a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea. You have to be willing to fail early, fail often, fail forward. These principles tap into our deepest intrinsic motivators: autonomy, the desire to direct our own lives; mastery, the urge to get better at stuff; and purpose, the need to do something that matters. When you combine these three, you unlock a state of peak performance that psychologists call flow. Flow is that state of being in the zone, where you're so absorbed in what you're doing that time seems to disappear, and you perform at your absolute best. Creating an environment that triggers flow is one of the secrets to achieving the impossible. The book then dives into the minds of four modern-day titans who live this ethos: Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, and Larry Page. It distills their wisdom into a set of mental tools for thinking at scale. For example, Elon Musk uses a technique called first principles thinking. Instead of reasoning by analogy, doing something because it's how it's always been done, he breaks a problem down to its most fundamental truths and reasons up from there. When he wanted to build rockets, everyone told him it was impossibly expensive. But he asked, what are rockets made of? Aluminum alloys, titanium, copper, carbon fiber. He calculated the cost of those materials on the open market and found they were only 2% of the typical price of a rocket. The rest was just bloated process from a slow-moving industry. By rethinking from first principles, he built SpaceX and cut the cost of getting to space by a factor of 10. Jeff Bezos, on the other hand, is obsessed with two things: customer-centric thinking and long-term thinking. He says companies can be focused on competitors, or products, or business models, but the most durable way to succeed is to be customer-obsessed. He also famously operates on a 5 to 7 year time horizon, while most companies are focused on the next 3 months. This long-term view allows Amazon to make bold bets and experiment relentlessly, knowing that even if most experiments fail, the few that succeed will be big enough to change the world. So you have the technology. You have the mindset. What's the last piece of the puzzle? You can't do it alone. This brings us to the third part of the book, the bold crowd. In the past, if you had a great idea, your resources were limited to your immediate circle. But today, thanks to the internet, you have access to a global pool of talent, capital, and intelligence. The authors break this down into 3 main tools. First is crowdsourcing, outsourcing a task to a large, undefined network of people. It's like having the world's biggest, most diverse team of employees on demand. Need a logo for your new company? On a site like 99 Designs, you can launch a contest, and hundreds of designers from around the world will compete to create one for you. You only pay for the one you like best. Need to solve a complex data problem? A platform called Kaggle lets you post it as a competition, and thousands of the world's best data scientists will work to solve it. The crowd can do almost anything. Second is crowdfunding, raising money from the crowd. This is one of the most revolutionary shifts for entrepreneurs. Instead of begging a handful of venture capitalists for money, you can go directly to your future customers. The book tells the incredible story of the Pebble Watch. In 2012, its creator, Eric Mijakovsky, had a brilliant design for a smartwatch but couldn't convince any investors to give him money. As a last-ditch effort, he launched a campaign on Kickstarter with a goal of raising $100,000. The response was explosive. In the first 2 hours, he hit his goal. In the first day, he raised $1 million. By the end of the campaign, he had raised over $10 million from nearly 70,000 people. Crowdfunding didn't just give him money, it proved he had a passionate market waiting for his product. It gave him an army of evangelists before he'd even shipped a single watch. Finally, there's building communities. This is about gathering a tribe of passionate, like-minded people around a shared mission. A company like Local Motors, which we mentioned earlier, didn't just 3D print a car. They built a community of over 100,000 car designers and enthusiasts who collaborate to design the vehicles. It's a completely open-source car company. The community submits designs, votes on them, and even helps build the cars in microfactories. They've tapped into a deep, frustrated passion in people who always dreamed of designing cars but never had the chance. The ultimate expression of all these ideas? Exponential tech, a bold mindset, and the power of the crowd, is the incentive competition. This is Peter Diamandis' life's work with the X Prize. The concept is simple. Set a clear, audacious, but achievable goal, and offer a large cash prize to the first team that can achieve it. The story of Charles Lindbergh's flight across the Atlantic wasn't just a daring act. He did it to win the $25,000 Orteig Prize. That prize inspired 9 different teams to spend a combined $400,000 to try and win it. It created an entire industry. Diamandis used this same model to create the $10 million Ansari X Prize for the first private team to build a reusable spaceship. It was a goal so bold it seemed impossible. But 26 teams from around the world spent over $100 million trying to win it. The winning technology was licensed by Richard Branson to create Virgin Galactic. An incentive prize doesn't just solve a problem, it creates a market. It proves the impossible is possible. And that is the final, powerful message of Bold. The tools are here. The mindset can be learned. The crowd is waiting. The barriers that once stood in the way of massive change are dissolving. The power to dream up a better future and then build it is now, for the first time in history, in your hands. The only question left is the one the book asks of us all. What bold thing will you do? Commentary. As we wrap up our journey through Bold, I want to take a moment to reflect on what this all means. This isn't just another business book with a few clever tips. It's a declaration that the world has fundamentally changed. The linear, predictable world our parents and grandparents grew up in is gone. We are living in an age of exponential acceleration, and you can either be the driver or you can be the roadkill. What I find most profound about this book is its deep and unwavering sense of optimism. It's not a naive, pie-in-the-sky optimism. It's what the authors call rational optimism. It's a belief rooted in data that shows technology is a force that turns scarcity into abundance. It's the belief that human ingenuity, when properly unleashed, can solve any problem. For someone your age, standing at the threshold of your life, this message is incredibly empowering. The book effectively hands you a new toolkit and a new license, a license to be audacious. It tells you that your crazy, world-changing idea isn't so crazy after all. In fact, In a world of exponential change, the craziest idea of all is to play it safe. So, how do you start? How do you apply these huge ideas to your life, right now? It's simpler than you think. You don't have to launch a billion-dollar company tomorrow. The journey of 1,000 miles, as they say, begins with a single step. Here's a simple action you can take today. First, identify one of the world's grand challenges that you are truly passionate about. It could be clean water, renewable energy, access to education, curing a disease, or opening up space. Don't worry about how to solve it yet. Just connect with the why. What problem breaks your heart and fires you up? Second, pick one of the exponential technologies we talked about: 3D printing, AI, robotics, synthetic biology, and commit to learning everything you can about it. Watch YouTube videos, read articles, find the online communities where people are experimenting. Become the expert in that one area. By connecting a big problem you care about with a powerful tool that can solve it, you plant the seed of a massively transformative purpose. You start to see the world not just as it is, but as it could be. And that is the very first step on the path to being bold. That was a deep dive into Bold by Peter H. Diamandis and Steven Kotler. We've explored the core ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. The real adventure begins when you step onto the path and explore it for yourself. The book is filled with stories, details, and insights that we just couldn't cover. It's in those quiet moments, when a particular idea clicks or a story resonates with your own dreams, that the true transformation happens. This summary is your map, to help you decide if this journey is one you want to take. If you felt a spark of excitement or a jolt of possibility from anything we discussed today, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about gaining knowledge, it's an experience that can fundamentally change how you see your own potential. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please show your support by liking this summary and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's continue this adventure of growth together.